Thousands have died, hundreds of thousands displaced, and widespread reports of sexual violence. Now we learned that status is not going to be renewed next week, according to the Department of Homeland Security. President Trump signed this executive order carving out an exception for the Afrikaners, the white minority who created the racist apartheid regime in South Africa.
Let's jump in some CNN reporting of Trump granting refugee status to some certain South Americans, white South Americans, amidst the vehement attack on brown immigrants and their refugee status or ability to claim asylum in this country. So first, buckle in, take a moment, leave us a like if you can. It gives us a big boost in the algorithm. We really appreciate it, and it's free. So leave us that like, and let's get right into the conversation.
President Trump announced that he was making an exception, and not only that, he would expedite the processing of refugee claims by one group of people from Africa. Now, you might think it's some women and children who've been maybe sexually assaulted in the conflict in the Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo, a place that's seen fighting for decades. On this program, we reported on the violence that plighted people there in a series of programs in 2006. What has gone on here is simply extraordinary. Over the last 10 years here, there has been major fighting between a number of different groups. It has been the deadliest war in our lifetime, the deadliest war since World War II. Thousands have died, hundreds of thousands displaced, and widespread reports of sexual violence against women. But President Trump hasn't allowed refugees from there here, nor from Sudan, where there's been terrible fighting. The only Africans President Trump has paved a quick path for are these South Africans. And yes, they are white. They are Afrikaners.
Now, I do want to clarify first, I see no problem with South Africans being granted refugee status just because they're white. That can happen. That's fine. If it's valid, let it be. As my problem that comes from this only comes from the very clear message it's painting of who Trump is willing to let in and even help to enter this country. Because as Anderson Cooper states, there is a humanitarian crisis in both Sudan and Congo, probably constituting genocide in both. Definitely in Sudan, the U.S. even recognizes it as a genocide. Trump has nothing for these countries. Trump went out of his way to end the TPS status of Haitians and Venezuelans, despite the situation in Haiti being a humanitarian crisis. People dying, starvation, disease becoming rampant, and conditions only growing worse. The same in Venezuela with, like, for instance, inflation at 200%. But for some reason, none of these predominantly black countries deserve refuge, but the white Afrikaners do. I mean, it's questionable at best.
On February 7th, President Trump signed this executive order carving out an exception for the Afrikaners, the white minority who created the racist apartheid regime in South Africa and ruled there cruelly and brutally until 1994. When black South Africans, the overwhelming majority of South Africans, were allowed to vote for the first time, and they voted for that man, Nelson Mandela. Afrikaners took land from black people in South Africa, repressed them, and in the 3 decades since the end of apartheid, they still have all the land they took. Black South Africans, who make up over 80% of the population, still only own around 4% of private land. Now, President Trump was asked why these Afrikaners were allowed to enter the U.S.
Why are you creating an expedited path into the country for Afrikaners but not others?
Because they're being killed, and we don't want to see people be killed. It's a genocide that's taking place that you people don't want to write about.
We just have to take a moment to be clear on how genuinely disgusting this is. But to stress again, if these specific individuals have a reason to seek refuge, I am nothing but happy that they got it. But to really understand how gross it is that Trump would call what's happening to white South Africans a genocide, you have to also understand he's never once called what's happening in Gaza a genocide. He's never once mentioned the genocide in Sudan that, again, the U.S. government recognizes as a genocide that is ongoing. And the narrative just plays more into the racist ideology of painting brown people in this barbaric light as if it's the white civilized people and that need saved from their barbaric actions. But there's no actual empirical, legal, academic basis for genocide happening, especially not to the white South Africans there. Black South Africans are more statistically likely to be victims of violent crime, if anything, and all these farm crimes and the things that they're pointing to. There's no basis for any of it.
Let me just go back to Sudan for a moment. An actual genocide has happened there, according to the U.S., as 2 warring factions battled for control of that country earlier this year. The U.S. accused one side, the RSF, of committing genocide. More than 11 million people have been internally displaced, while millions more have fled the country. That's according to the UN. They aren't allowed to be refugees here. And on top of this, the Afghans who worked alongside U.S. troops during the war as interpreters and guides and fixers, Afghans who fought for the United States, helped save American lives, and were allowed here under a temporary protected status. Well, now we learned that status is not going to be renewed next week, according to the Department of Homeland Security, which means many who helped save U.S. lives may be deported starting in July.
And again, it's the pattern or the totality of the behavior that is really disturbing to me, not the act in an isolated manner. It's the willingness to even unjustifiably remove protected status from brown immigrants, whether it be those fleeing genuine persecution, whether it be those here on student visas whose beliefs just don't align with what you think is proper, or like the Afghans who aided us tremendously to then almost performatively go out of your way to bring in white immigrants for what just seems like, I don't know, like a political win to strike to like the dog whistle to your racist base. And maybe also Elon Musk in his ear telling him to do something had something to do with it, because like the white genocide line is something that I first heard from Elon's mouth. And I don't know even how popular in the mainstream it is that Trump would be parroting it without him. It's horrendously disingenuous. I mean, it almost makes me not want to discuss it with how sickening it makes me feel because of how gross of a perspective it is that these people will deny genocides of brown people. They'll deny the systemic discrimination of brown people. They'll deny the plight that brown people feel because they're brown every single day, deny racism against brown people, all of this. But then the second that they can grasp at any straw or reach at any level to be like, look, it's racism that's real, but it's against whites, they'll do it. And it's just like, I don't know, it's disheartening almost is probably the word.